They both laughed quietly, but the words lingered longer than they should have. She looked at him really, looked and something inside her shifted. Not love, not yet, but something close to it. Something that felt like warmth after being cold for too long. The rain kept falling, and soon they were sitting closer, talking again. They spoke about college, about what they wanted out of life. Ethan admitted he didn't have everything figured out, and Olivia admitted she didn't either. "I thought by 20 I'd know who I was," she said. "Turns out I just know who I'm not." He nodded. "That's a start. Maybe that's how it goes. You learn who you're not, and the rest comes later." When the rain finally stopped, the night was still. The candles had burned low, and neither of them wanted to move. But Ethan stood, stretching his arms. "I should head back," he said quietly. "You can stay until the power's back," she offered. He smiled, shaking his head. "If I stay, I might not leave." Olivia didn't know what to say. He gave her one last look before stepping out into the night. She stood at the window long after he left, watching him walk down the path, his figure fading into the dark. Something about that moment felt like the beginning of something they couldn't quite demand, maybe didn't need to. The next morning, things felt different. They were still friendly, still laughing. But there was a new awareness, an invisible line neither wanted to cross, yet couldn't ignore. When their hands brushed while passing tools, or their eyes met for a second too long, time seemed to slow down. They didn't talk about it, but they both knew. One evening, Olivia's friend Emily stopped by to drop off a book. She noticed Ethan working in the yard and raised an eyebrow. "Since when do you hang out with him again?" she asked. Olivia shrugged. "We're just catching up." "He's helping around," Emily smirked. "Helping, huh? You sure that's all?" Olivia laughed it off, but her heart skipped a beat. She didn't have an answer she could explain. Later, after Emily left, Olivia sat on the steps watching the sunset. Ethan joined her quietly, holding 2 bottles of sparkling water. "You look like you're thinking too much," he said. "Maybe," she admitted. "People keep asking questions I don't know how to answer." He took a sip, glancing at the horizon. "You don't owe anyone an answer." They sat in silence after that, the sky turning from gold to soft blue. Crickets started to sing, and a cool breeze moved through the trees. It was one of those evenings that felt endless, like the world had paused just for them. Over the next few days, the rhythm continued. Breakfasts turned into long talks. Chores became excuses to stay longer. Sometimes they'd drive into town for groceries, sometimes they'd just wander to the lake and skip stones. Each day added another small piece to something that was quietly growing between them. Something neither of them dared to name, but even gentle moments can carry weight. One night, as they sat by the lake, Ethan skipped a stone and said, "You ever wonder what happens after this? When your parents come back, when summer ends?" She hesitated. "I don't know. Maybe we just go back to how things were." He looked at her, his voice low. "Can we, though?" The question hung in the air like a slow echo. She didn't have an answer, and maybe he didn't expect one. They just sat there, the moonlight stretching across the water, quiet and unsure. When she went home that night, she realized something had changed, not just in how she felt about Ethan, but in how she saw herself. For the first time, she noticed how easily she smiled when he was near, how calm she felt when he spoke. It wasn't about falling in love quickly. It was about finding something steady in the middle of uncertainty. By the end of that week, the summer didn't feel endless anymore. Each day carried a quiet urgency, like time was moving faster than it should. They still hadn't said what they both knew, but maybe that was the beauty of it. Some feelings don't need to be spoken to be real. And as another warm night settled over Maplewood, Olivia stood on her porch watching Ethan's house across the fence. The lights inside flickered off, and she smiled to herself, heart full of something she couldn't explain, something honest, hopeful, and quietly unforgettable. The warmth of summer slowly began to carry a subtle tension. Days were still bright and long, but Olivia and Ethan both felt the weight of what was unspoken. They had grown close in ways that were effortless, yet complicated. The house quiet and empty with her parents away. had become a private world for them. But as the days passed, the reality of returning to their separate lives loomed over each interaction. One afternoon, Olivia decided to go to the small lake behind their houses. She needed space, but somehow she also wanted someone there with her, someone who understood. As she settled onto a flat rock by the water's edge, she noticed Ethan coming up the path. He stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets, watching her quietly. "You come here often?" he asked softly. "Sometimes," she replied, her eyes on the water. "When I need to think." He sat down beside her without asking, careful not to crowd her, just close enough that their shoulders brushed. For a moment, they were silent, listening to the gentle lapping of water and the wind moving through the trees. "You'll be leaving soon," he said finally, not looking at her. Olivia's stomach tightened. "Yeah, back to school." "I'll be here," he added quietly. Same old routine. Everything the same. She looked at him, the words in her chest too complicated to say. She wanted to tell him that her summer had changed because of him, that everything felt different now. But instead, she shrugged and traced a pattern in the sand. "Maybe some things aren't meant to last," she murmured. He turned to her, then. And there was a softness in his eyes that caught her off guard. "Or maybe some things are meant to stay, even if they're hard to hold on to." Her heart skipped. There was longing in his voice, a quiet ache that mirrored her own. They both knew the truth of it, that the time they had together was fragile, measured in days, not promises. The next few days were a mixture of closeness and hesitation. They laughed over breakfast, teasing each other about small mistakes in chores, or who made the worst lemonade. Yet underneath the lightheartedness was a growing tension. Every glance held meaning. Every brush of hands left a lingering warmth neither could ignore. One evening, Eth helped her set up a small projector in the backyard to watch a movie. They spread blankets on the grass, and as the first scenes played, Olivia found herself leaning slightly closer to him. He noticed but didn't pull away. Instead, he shifted just enough that their shoulders touched. They laughed at the movie's jokes. But the quiet moments between them were louder than any dialogue. When the film ended, they sat under the stars, the night warm and still. "I wish time could slow down," Olivia said quietly. Ethan nodded. "I know. Sometimes I feel like I only notice things when I'm about to lose them." Her heart ached. "Do you ever wonder if we'll go back to being strangers once summer ends?" He exhaled slowly. "I don't want to." The days passed, and the unspoken connection between them grew stronger. Olivia started noticing the little things. The way he smiled when she got excited about something. The way he always remembered what she liked. The quiet patience he had when she needed space. Ethan noticed her too, how her laughter carried easily. How her eyes seemed to change color in the sunlight. How she would pause before answering certain questions as if weighing the truth. But distance hovered over them like a shadow. Olivia's parents called frequently, checking in, asking about chores, and casually reminding her that life outside their home existed. Every call was a small reminder that the sanctuary they'd created together wouldn't last forever. Ethan's own commitments loomed too. Even in the lazy pace of summer, responsibilities could not be ignored. One afternoon, Olivia found him reading in the porch swing. "You're always in the right place at the right time," she teased. He smiled faintly, closing the book. "Or maybe I just follow you around," she laughed. But there was a nervous tension under it. A realization that nothing they had could remain hidden forever. That night she lay in bed thinking about him, about the way he had become such a quiet, steady presence in her life. She realized that part of the sadness she felt was anticipation. The worry that this closeness might vanish when her parents returned. It wasn't fear of change, exactly, but fear of losing the comfort they'd found in each other. The following morning, they went for a walk around Maplewood. Summer flowers lined the streets, and the scent of grass and warm air surrounded them. Their conversation was light at first, about mundane things like grocery lists and neighborhood gossip. But then Ethan asked, "Do you think people can hold on to things they can't see?" Olivia frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, feelings, moments, memories. Can you keep them safe even when the world moves on? She stopped walking, considering him. I don't know. Maybe you just carry them in your mind. Kay nodded, his hand brushing hers briefly as they started walking again. The touch was small, fleeting, but it left a spark neither could deny. The air in Maplewood felt different that summer, warm, slow, and filled with that kind of quiet that made you notice everything. Olivia Sanders returned home from college with a sense of relief and restlessness mixed together. Her parents, both architects, were leaving for a 2-week trip to Seattle for a project. She didn't mind staying alone. She actually looked forward to some peace after months of campus chaos. What she didn't expect was Ethan Brooks showing up at her doorstep the morning after her parents left Holler. Broader and nothing like the boy she used to race bikes with down Pine Street. Ethan lived next door, and their families had always been close. He was helping his dad take care of their lawn while his parents were also away visiting relatives. Olivia hadn't seen him properly in almost 2 years, not since that awkward Thanksgiving when everyone noticed how quiet he'd become. Now, standing under the sun with his sleeves rolled up and a shy grin on his face, he looked like a memory that suddenly grew up. Your mom said you might need help with the backyard, he said, holding a pair of garden gloves. His voice was deeper, steady. Olivia smiled, a little unsure of what to say. Well, it's wild out there. You might regret offering. I've survived worse, he said, glancing toward the overgrown garden, like it was a challenge. That afternoon, the sound of a lawnmower filled the air while Olivia sat on the porch steps, sipping lemonade. Every so often, she caught herself watching him, how focused he was, how easy he made it look. It wasn't attraction exactly, not yet. It was more like curiosity, the kind that sneaks up when something familiar becomes suddenly unfamiliar. When the sun dipped behind the trees, Ethan leaned against the porch railing, wiping sweat from his forehead. You still paint? He asked. Sometimes, Olivia said. Mostly when I don't know what else to do with myself. You should show me sometime. She hesitated, then nodded. Maybe. The house felt emptier that evening, but not in a lonely way. It felt expectant, like something was waiting to begin. Over the next few days, their paths crossed more often. He'd show up early to trim the bushes or fix a broken gate latch. She'd bring him iced tea and stay to talk. Their conversations were easy about music, college work, dreams that didn't always make sense. It felt natural, like slipping back into something old but better fitting. One afternoon, while organizing the garage, Olivia found a dusty box labeled Summer 2012. Inside were photos of her and Ethan as kids, splashing in sprinklers, chasing each other with popsicles. She laughed quietly to herself, then heard a voice behind her. Wow, I remember that summer, Ethan said, stepping closer. She turned, startled but smiling. You still had braces back then? And you still wore those pink roller skates everywhere, he replied with a grin. They both laughed, but something in his eyes lingered, a softness that wasn't there before. The moment stretched, light and fragile, until she looked away, pretending to fix the box lid. I should probably throw these out, she said quickly. Don't, he said. Some memories deserve to stay. That night, Olivia couldn't sleep. She sat by her window, watching the glow of Ethan's porch light through the trees. It flickered off a few minutes later, and she wondered if he was awake too. Thinking about the same things, how strange it felt to rediscover someone you thought you'd outgrown. The next morning, they decided to repaint the backyard fence together, something her dad had been putting off for years. They worked in silence at first, brushes moving in rhythm, the scent of fresh paint mixing with summer air. Then Ethan said, You ever think about leaving Maplewood for good? All the time, Olivia said. But then I come back and remember why it's hard to leave. He smiled faintly. Because of people like me. She glanced at him, surprised, then laughed. Maybe. There was something playful in the way they talked now. Kind of gentle teasing that covered up what neither dared to say outright. Every little thing, the way he looked at her, the way she said his name, carried a small charge, invisible but real. That evening, a neighborhood cookout brought them both outside again. Music played softly from someone's speaker. Kids ran around with sparklers. and the air smelled like grilled corn and barbecue sauce. Olivia stood near the fence, watching the lights dance above the yards. Ethan joined her, holding 2 cups of lemonade. "For you," he said. She took it with a small smile. "Thanks." They talked until the sky turned pink, about nothing important, college stories, future plans, old memories. But beneath every word was something unspoken. When the lights started to fade and people began heading home, neither of them moved. "You've changed," Olivia said quietly. "So have you," he replied. "But you still look like you belong here." For a moment, their eyes met, and the noise around them disappeared. It wasn't dramatic or loud, just a stillness that felt like an answer to a question neither had asked out loud. Then her phone buzzed, breaking the spell. It was her mom, checking in. Olivia turned away to answer, and by the time she looked back, Ethan had gone to help an elderly neighbor pack up chairs. That night, she lay in bed thinking about him. Not in the way you think about someone you like, but in the way you think about something that suddenly feels important. She didn't understand it fully, not yet, but she knew the summer wasn't going to be ordinary. The next morning, rain tapped against the windows. Ethan showed up anyway, drenched but smiling. "I figured you'd need help with the storm windows," he said. They worked together, laughing at how soaked they were, slipping on wet grass, shouting over thunder. When it was done, they stood on the porch, breathing hard, water dripping from their clothes. For a second, Olivia almost said something honest, something brave. But she stopped herself. She wasn't ready to change what was happening between them. Not yet. As the storm passed and sunlight broke through the clouds, she realized something quiet and certain. That this summer, the one that started so simply, was already changing her. Because sometimes what surprises you most isn't what happens when people are gone, but what begins to happen. When someone finally comes back into your life, and in that house with no parents, no rules, and no expectations, something had begun. Something gentle, uncertain, and real. The days after the storm felt softer, quieter. The air smelled like wet grass and something new like possibility. Olivia and Ethan fell into an easy rhythm without planning it. He showed up every morning, sometimes to help with small chores, sometimes just to sit on the porch and talk. There were no clear rules about what they were to each other, but something about their days together felt steady. Like time had stopped noticing them. One morning, Olivia woke early and made pancakes. She wasn't expecting company, but just as she flipped the last one, she heard a knock. It was Ethan, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers. "Found these near the fence," he said with a grin. "Figured they'd look better here than in the dirt." She laughed, taking them, surprised by the simple gesture. He joined her for breakfast, and they ate in the kitchen with sunlight spilling across the table. It wasn't romantic in any loud way. It was the kind of comfort that sneaks up slowly, without you realizing how much you've started to look forward to it. By afternoon, they were in the backyard painting again. Ethan talked about his plans after summer. How he was thinking of joining a local trade program instead of going back to school. Olivia listened closely. "You've always been good with your hands," she said. "You make things work," he smiled, brushing paint off his wrist. "Guess I like fixing what's broken." There was something about the way he said it that stayed with her. It's like a quiet confession. That night the sky turned dark faster than usual. Clouds rolled in heavy, and soon rain began to pour again. The power flickered once, twice, then went out completely. Olivia lit candles in the kitchen, the room glowing in soft golden light. She was just settling on the couch when Ethan knocked again, rain dripping from his hair. "Lights are out at my place too," he said. "Mind if I stay until it clears?" She nodded. "Of course. Come in." They sat near the window, the sound of rain loud against the roof. The flicker of candlelight made everything look warmer, more honest. They talked about the past, the time they got lost in the woods as kids. How her dog once chased his bike down the street. How easy everything used to be. Then the conversation quieted. The only sound left was the rain and the small clink of her cup against the table. Ethan leaned back, watching her. "You ever think about how fast people change?" He asked. "All the time," she said softly. Like one day you wake up and someone you've known forever suddenly feels like someone new. Olivia's heart raced a little. She didn't answer right away. She could feel his gaze, steady and gentle, like he wasn't waiting for her to say anything, just to understand what he meant. The air between them felt charged but calm. It's the kind of silence that doesn't need to be broken. A flash of lightning lit the room, followed by thunder that made her jump. Without thinking, she laughed nervously. Ethan smiled. "Still hate storms. Always," she said. "Then you're lucky I'm here." The day Olivia's parents returned home felt different than she expected. The house, once alive with laughter and quiet shared moments, seemed ordinary against Lean, organized, familiar. It was like stepping back into a life that had continued without her noticing. She stood on the porch, watching her parents' car pull into the driveway, her stomach twisting with a mix of relief and something she couldn't quite name. The summer had changed everything, and now the world she'd shared with Ethan was about to end. Ethan arrived that morning, carrying a bag of groceries for her parents, pretending it was just neighborly help. He smiled when he saw her on the porch. "Welcome back," he said casually, but she could see the quiet tension in his posture. They both knew the summer bubble was about to burst. Her parents came in, busy with stories from their trip, unpacking souvenirs and checking the house. Olivia helped carry bags and share updates, but she felt a strange sense of distance, as if the magic of the last few weeks was invisible to everyone else. Every glance at Ethan reminded her of all the quiet moments they had shared, the laughter, the rain, the lake, the porch swings, the stories, the silences. After her parents settled in, Ethan stayed to help with small chores, like taking out the trash and organizing the garage. They moved through tasks almost silently, each knowing what to say without saying it. When they finally paused, standing in the quiet kitchen, he looked at her with a small, uneasy smile. "So, I guess this is it," he said softly. Olivia's chest tightened. "I guess." Neither wanted to speak too much, knowing that words could change everything. The house that had felt like their own little world suddenly felt crowded with reality. She thought about all the evenings they'd spent under the stars, the afternoons painting fences, the rain-soaked laughter, and realized how much she would miss him. Ethan walked to the porch to leave. He paused, looking back at her. "You know," he said, his voice low some summers, "they don't end when they're over." Olivia blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said slowly, "that what we've had doesn't have to disappear just because life moves on. You carry it with you." She felt a lump in her throat. "Even if we don't see each other?" He nodded. "Even then. You'll remember the moments, the feelings. That's never lost." For a moment, neither moved. The air between them was heavy with everything they hadn't said, everything they didn't know how to say. And yet, in that silence, there was a strange comfort, proof that what they shared was real. Even if it couldn't continue in the same way. As Ethan finally turned to leave, he reached up, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. The gesture was simple, gentle, and full of meaning. Olivia felt the warmth linger long after he walked down the path, his figure fading into the quiet neighborhood. She realized that what had happened over the summer wasn't dramatic or shocking. It wasn't something anyone could point to or name. It was something quieter, deeper, and infinitely more real. Over the next few days, life returned to its normal rhythm. Olivia helped her parents around the house, answered their questions, and tried to reconnect with the world outside the summer bubble. Yet every time she passed Ethan's house, memories of their shared moments came rushing back. She smiled at the thought of him, at his soft laughter, at the way he had understood her in ways no one else had. Ethan, too, continued his own routine, but the summer had left its mark. He noticed the absence of their long talks, the playful teasing, the quiet companionship. He found himself remembering small details: how she liked her lemonade, the way she laughed when it rained, the way she would pause and think before speaking. It was as if the summer had carved out a space in his heart that no one else could fill. One afternoon, Olivia sat by the lake alone, tracing patterns in the sand where they had skipped stones together. She thought about all the things she wanted to tell him, but hadn't the way she had felt safe with him. The way he had made ordinary days feel extraordinary. The way she had come to depend on his presence more than she expected. She realized that some connections didn't need constant reinforcement. They left a mark simply by existing. When Ethan visited the next day, they walked together quietly. The usual teasing and laughter were there, but beneath it was a mutual understanding. Neither spoke of the summer in detail. They didn't need to. It was all there in the way they moved together, in the unspoken warmth that lingered in every glance and gesture. "Do you think we'll ever have another summer like this?" Olivia asked, her voice soft. He shook his head with a small smile. "No, but maybe we don't need to. We've already had it. It's ours." The truth in his words hit her. They had created something unique, a connection that didn't need to be repeated to be meaningful. It existed because they chose it, because they were present in it, and because they allowed themselves to feel without expectation as the evening came. They sat on the porch, watching the sun set behind Maplewood. The sky was a canvas of soft oranges and pinks, reflecting off the quiet streets. Neither of them spoke for a while, just sitting together, letting the peace of the moment sink in. It was bittersweet, the awareness that the summer was over, mixed with gratitude for what had been shared. Before Ethan left, he turned to her one last time. "No matter what happens, what we had, it's not gone. You'll carry it with you." Olivia nodded, tears threatening but unshed. "I know," she whispered. "I'll never forget." He smiled faintly, a mix of sadness and warmth. "Good, because I won't either." As he walked away, Olivia realized that summer had given her more than fleeting moments. It had given her a glimpse of what it meant to be truly understood, truly connected, and truly alive in someone else's presence. The kind of connection that stays with you not as a memory to be revisited, but as a quiet truth you carry forward. Over the next weeks, life settled into its normal rhythm. School resumed, her parents returned fully to their routines, and Ethan continued with his own projects. Yet the shadow of that summer lingered, not as sadness, but as a gentle reminder of something real and profound. Every time she thought of him, she smiled, not with longing, but with gratitude. They had shared something pure, meaningful, and unforgettable. Olivia realized that sometimes the most profound relationships don't end in drama or heartbreak. They end quietly, with understanding, respect, and a shared knowledge that some connections are too special to be limited by time or circumstance. And in that quiet realization, she felt a deep sense of peace. The summer had changed her, and Ethan had changed her. And even though life was moving forward, what they shared would remain a quiet, unspoken bond that neither distance nor time could erase. That night, she stood on the porch once more, looking at the stars. The world felt vast, but her heart felt full. The summer had ended, but what happened between them in the absence of parents had created something timeless. It had been honest, gentle, and unforgettable. It had been theirs, and for Olivia, that was enough.